Okay, dear students, let's start practicing ABC. In a very first class, we did discuss each and every concept and theoretical aspects of ABC. In fact, our very first class was entirely theory based. In the second class of ABC, we did a very long question and we discuss each and everything. We did discuss the theoretical part of that question in detail as well. Even though we know that we are not going to ask a very long question on ABC. You're not going to ask ABC question in section C, but still, class 2 was very important to get a really good idea, really good understanding of ABC. So obviously, we know that ABC, obviously, you should be expecting in section A as well as in section B. But definitely, lecture 2, a very long question, will definitely help us in section A as well as in section C. Which two of the following are not usually a characteristics of modern manufacturing environment? Which two of the following are not usually a characteristics of modern manufacturing environment? Shorter production cycle. It is the characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. Okay. So there's a shorter production cycle. Greater emphasis on quality. Yes, it is the characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. We are required to identify two of the following are not usually the characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. So the first two, both are, they are characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. Greater use of advanced technology. Obviously, if we are not using technology nowadays, when we are going to use? So first three, they are the characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. Now, reduced level of employee participation. This is not the characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. In a modern manufacturing environment, since the modern manufacturing environment, the participation of employees, they have increased. Now, to be very honest, any suggestion given by any employee which is beneficial, which is workable organization, they do consider it. Previously, this was not the case, but now it is the case. For example, I still remember, I'm not going to quote the name of a company. One of my student, obviously at that time, he was working in that company. And just within, I would say, very short period of time, he realized that manufacturing costs can be reduced. So he just gave them 2 or 3 suggestions, and a very big achievement for me and my student, I would say, especially for my student, that is, company opted the suggestion given by my student, and the unit price actually got reduced and without compromising on quality. So definitely everyone appreciated him only, but he said only appreciation was there, no increment in the salary, and that was disappointing, to be very honest, because due to reduction in the unit cost, selling price was still there, profitability increased, and company, they made a really big amount of money, but no increase in salary. Obviously, it's not good. But I don't know later what happened, but initially they did not increase his salary. So reduced level of employee participation, it is not the characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. Now we do have the more participation of employees, like I've given you the example. Increase rigidity in process. No, this is not the characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. Basically, the modern manufacturing environment is more flexible. So it is, I would say, the rigidity has reduced. Traditional environment was very rigid, but now it is, I would say, nowadays, in a modern manufacturing environment, due to flexibility, due to the involvement of technology, rigidity is far more less than what it used to be in a traditional environment. So the last two are the correct answer, that they are not the characteristics of modern manufacturing environment. Okay. A company produces a range of products and uses an absorption costing system. Which two of the following are unlikely to be a consequence of the company switching to an ABC system? Okay. A company produces a range of products and uses absorption costing. Now they are asking which two of the following are unlikely to be a consequence if they shift from absorption to ABC. So which two of the following are unlikely to be the consequence? Let's see. Indirect overheads will be shared between products on fair basis. That is going to be the consequence. Obviously, the claim of ABC is fair allocation. We need to find out which two of the following are not to be the consequence of shifting from absorption to ABC. The number one is a consequence of shifting from absorption to ABC. Product pricing decision will be improved. Yes, it will definitely be improved. No doubt about it. So product pricing decision will be improved, and especially we have also already discussed this, especially when you are having a pricing policy of cost plus profit, then obviously your pricing decision will definitely improve. Okay. The prime production cost of each product will fall. No, 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 no. It has no effect. In fact, prime production cost has nothing to do with the absorption and ABC. Now, the question is, what do you mean by prime production cost? Basically, prime production cost means major cost. Let me explain that. Logically, your prime production cost, it is equal to direct labor cost plus direct material cost plus if you have direct expense, for example, royalty payment. So obviously, prime production cost means the major cost. So what is going to be the direct labor cost will remain same. Either it is absorption costing and obviously ABC. Direct material cost will remain same. Direct expense cost will remain same. So the prime cost, the major cost will remain same. It has no impact. Either you are going for ABC or you are still at absorption. Under both the costing, your prime production cost, your another name is direct cost will remain same. Basically, the main difference between absorption and ABC is ABC deals with overheads on a fair basis. So it has no impact when you're switching from absorption to ABC, no impact on prime production cost. So no impact on prime production cost. Cost control on indirect overheads will be harder to achieve. No, actually, cost control on indirect overheads will not be harder. It will become, I would say, it will actually improve. I'm not saying it's good, it will become more easy. Basically, it's going to be improved. So you can say that cost control as compared to absorption in ABC, it is easier if we are comparing cost control of indirect overheads as compared to absorption. So in ABC, cost control of indirect overhead is easier as compared to absorption costing. Total production cost of each product will change. Yes, definitely it will change. So the answer is 3 and 4. So 3 and 4, these are the two characteristics. Will they have actually third one has no impact. Either you are going for ABC. And fourth one, what they have written incorrect. They are saying cost control of indirect overhead will be harder to achieve. Actually, it will be easier to achieve as compared to absorption costing. Okay, now. What is the inspection cost per unit of product alpha? They're just asking us what is the inspection cost per unit of product alpha. Select from the list below. Now, very simple. What is the inspection cost per unit of product alpha? Actually, first we need to calculate inspection cost, which actually relates to alpha. If we have calculated, let's say, the total inspection cost, which actually relates to alpha, then obviously divided by total number of units of alpha will give you the per unit inspection cost. So the main thing is we need to calculate the total inspection cost, which actually relates to alpha. Okay, let's read the data. A company which makes two products, alpha and zeta, uses ABC to absorb its overheads. It has recently identified a new overhead cost pool for inspection costs and has decided that the cost driver is the number of inspection, which is very much logical. Now listen, student, if we know the total number of inspection, then total inspection cost divided by total number of inspections will give us per inspection cost. And then it becomes easier for us to allocate how much inspection cost belongs to alpha. Total inspection cost is 2,50,000. So overhead absorption rate, total inspection cost is 2,50,000. Now actually we need total number of inspections. So once we have calculated the total number of inspection, then 2,50,000 divided by total number of inspections will give us actually overhead absorption rate per inspection. Then it becomes very easy to allocate how much inspection cost belongs to alpha. And after that, number of units of alpha divided by the inspection cost, which relates to alpha, will give us the answer. Production volume. Alpha is having 2,500 units. Zeta volume is 8,000. Machine hours per unit. Units per batch. Very important. Units per batch is 500. So basically, when we are going to make one batch of alpha, so logically we'll be producing 500 units. So it means the production is not on a unit basis, the production is on batch basis. You might have seen it is written in the, if you look at the tablets medicine, so normally they do write the batch number. So obviously they cannot manufacture, especially when it comes to the, I would say the tablets, one tablet, two tablet. No, no, no. They always go for batches. So in one batch, let's say they are manufacturing 2,000, I would say 2,000 tablets, 3,000 tablets. So it will always be on the basis of batches. So one batch of alpha, we produce 500 units. So total alpha units are 2,500. If I divide 2,500 with units per batch, which is 500, so it will give me the number of, I can calculate how many batches we will be producing for alpha. And inspection is actually per batch. Inspection is not per unit, inspection is per batch. Now listen carefully. Inspection is per batch. So I need to identify how many batches are there. So, and then we can easily calculate the total number of inspections. In case of Zeta, per batch, they are producing 1,000 units and inspection per batch is 1. So let us first calculate how many batches of alpha and zeta we are going to produce, then how many inspections are required in alpha, how many inspections are required in zeta. So this is question number 31. Alpha, batches, Total number of units, alpha is having 2,500. But again, the manufacturing is not on per unit basis. It is on per batch basis, and one batch is having 500 units. So 2,500 divided by the size of the batch. Volume of alpha divided by the size of the batch will give us basically how many batches of alpha we are producing. So in order to actually have the production of 2,500 units, and the production is on per batch basis, so the answer is 5 batches. So basically 5 batches of alpha means we are actually manufacturing 2,500 units of alpha, because one batch size is 500 units. So when you are producing one batch of alpha, just one batch of alpha, it means you are manufacturing 500 units of alpha. So it means that in order to manufacture 2,500 units of alpha, the total number of batches are 5. Now, how many inspections do we need? I'll come to this. Now, zeta batches. Zeta batches, very easy. The production total volume is zeta is 8,000. Per batch, we are producing 1,000. So number of batches. Zeta is having number of batches 8, alpha 5. Now, let's see. Look at the inspection is not per unit. Actually, inspection is per batch. Repeat, inspection is not per unit. Inspection is per batch. So we have calculated number of batches for alpha, it is 5. Okay. One batch needs 4 inspection. Here, one batch needs 1 inspection. So total inspections. Alpha needs 20, zeta needs 8. So it means the total of alpha and zeta, the inspection total is 28. Great. Now, very easily we can calculate per inspection overhead cost. Very easily we can calculate per inspection overhead cost. So overhead absorption rate per inspection. Overhead inspection rate per inspection. Look at this. Total overheads, we know that 2,50,000 relating to inspection divided by total number of inspections, and total number of inspection we have calculated, that is 28. So simply 2,50,000 divided by 28. 2,50,000 divided by 28. Let me use the calculator. 2,50,000 divided by 28. I'm getting 8,928.571429. So many values. So just take it. 8,928.57. So I'm going till 3 decimal places. That is good enough. So we have calculated overhead inspection rate, overhead absorption rate per inspection. Now, we need to calculate inspection cost for the alpha per unit, okay? So alpha cost per unit. Now, first we need to calculate how much inspection cost relates to alpha. Per inspection, the overhead cost is 8,928.571. This is per inspection cost. How many inspections do we carry out? Total inspection we carry out in alpha, they are 20. So multiply by 20. Now listen carefully, students. per inspection cost is 8,928.571. This is per inspection. In order to manufacture 2,500 units of alpha, the total number of inspection we will carry out, there are 20. So basically, by multiplying per inspection cost with number of inspection required in alpha will give you how much total inspection cost relates to alpha. Then divided by 2,500 units of alpha will give us per unit inspection cost, will give us inspection cost per unit of alpha. So 8,928.571 multiplied by 20 divided by 2,500. Students, I'm getting 71.428. If you're not getting the exact answer from the multiple choice options, then obviously we'll go to the nearest one. Let's see. Okay, they have given us everything in the 2 decimal places. So, okay. Definitely this is the nearest one, because even you round off this one. So logically it is 71.43. So your appropriate answer is 71.43. Okay, now let's try next question. Which of the following statements are true regarding activity-based costing and cost drivers? Which of the following statements are true regarding ABC and cost driver? And we know that the meaning of cost driver is reason to incur cost. Let's see. A cost driver is any factor that causes a change in the cost of an activity. Yes. Simply, they have written the definition of the cost driver. Basically, the cost driver is the reason to incur the cost. Second, for long-term variable overheads, the cost driver will be the volume of activity. Very true. Obviously, variable overheads, when the volume of activity changes, your variable overhead will change. Traditional absorption costing tends to under-allocate overhead cost to low volume products. Again, true. So traditionally, we know that your traditional absorption costing is on volume basis. If product is having a less volume, it will be allocated less overheads. And that we have covered in lecture 1, as well as we did discuss in lecture 2 also. So all 3 are correct. So third is, you can say, another disadvantage of, third is one of the most disadvantage of, I would say, absorption costing. Okay, now let's go to another one. A company makes, using activity-based costing, what is the setup cost per unit of A? Now, student, very simple. Number one, actually, we need to calculate overhead absorption rate. We first need total inspection cost. Then divided by total number of inspections. Total number of inspections. That will give you the per inspection rate. Okay. We need to calculate. No, it's not about inspection. They're talking about setups. So total setup cost, no issue at all. Total setup cost divided by total number of setups. So basically, very easily we can calculate overhead absorption rate. So total setup cost divided by total number of setup will give us per setup cost. Per setup cost. Then what are we going to do? Setup cost per unit of product A is actually equal to overhead absorption rate per setup, overhead absorption rate per setup multiplied by number of setups in product A. Overhead absorption rate means overhead absorption rate per setup multiplied by number of setups in product A divided by units of product A. So how will you calculate setup cost per unit of product A? Repeat. First, obviously, we need to calculate overhead absorption rate. Total setup cost divided by total number of setups. So total setup cost divided by total number of setups will give us overhead absorption rate per setup. Then setup cost per unit, how will you calculate of product A? Overhead absorption rate per setup multiplied by number of setups required in product A. That will actually give you, numerator will actually give you the total setup cost which relates to product A divided by units of product A. You will get the answer. So let's now first try to calculate overhead absorption rate per setup. Okay. A company makes product A and B. Fine. It is experimenting with activity-based costing. Production setups are $12,000. So one thing we have identified, the total setup cost is $12,000. Now we need total number of setups. Total production will be 20,000 units of each of product A and B. So A is having production 20,000. B is also having production units 20,000. Each run is 1,000 units of A. So actually when in each run, we make 1,000 units of A. 5,000 units of B. It means that if I divide this one with 1,000 and divide this with 5,000, I will get the answer of how many setups do we need for product A? How many setups do we need for product B? So let's do it. 20,000 obviously divided by 1,000 will give us 20. Because after each run, you have to bear the setup cost. After each run, you have to bear the setup cost. So 20,000 divided by 5,000 will give us 4. So basically, total number of setups are 24. Total number of setups are 24. Total setup cost is 12,000. Total number of setups are 24. So very easily, we can calculate per setup cost. $12,000 divided by 24 gives us $500 per setup. $500 per setup. Now, very easily we can calculate setup cost of product, setup cost per unit of product A is equal to overhead absorption rate per setup, which is 500, multiplied by number of setups in product A. So number of setups in product A, they are 20. Number of setups in product A, they are 20. Number of units of product A, we have 20,000. So 500 multiplied by 20 will give us $10,000 divided by 20. It means the answer is $0.5 per unit. The answer is $0.5 per unit. So 0.5. Okay, now which of the following statement is true regarding activity-based costing? Which of the following statement is true regarding activity? Now we need to find out which of the following is true regarding activity-based costing. A cost pool is an activity which consumes resources and for which overhead costs are identified and allocated. Yes. When you are carrying out the same activity again, the total of the same activity simply is the cost pool. For example, how much, for example, inspection cost. So if there's an inspection cost of 200,000, so let's see that activity we carried out for 20 times, 30 times. So that total 200,000, for example, it relates to total number of inspection. So cost pool is an activity which consumes resources and for which overheads costs are obviously identified and allocated. Okay. An activity-based costing overhead absorption rate is calculated in the same way as absorption costing and will result in the same overhead being calculated for each cost pool. Incorrect. Obviously, if statement number 2 is correct, then there's no need of the ABC at all. So the main objective of developing ABC is fair allocation of overheads. Even though we know that total overheads will not change, but definitely allocation per product will definitely change. So it cannot be the same. So only the statement 1 is correct. Okay, now a company uses activity-based costing to calculate the unit cost of its product. The figures for period 3 are as follows. Production setup cost is 84,000. I would say again the same thing. Total setup cost they have given us. All you need is total setup divided by total number of setup will give us per setup cost. Okay. Total production is 40,000 units of each product A and B, and each run this time. When we are manufacturing product A, so in one run we are producing 2,000 units, and in one run we are producing 5,000 units of B. Now they are asking what is the setup cost of product B to 2 decimal places. So question 35. Obviously, first we need to calculate overhead absorption rate per setup. For that, let us first calculate total number of setups, A and B. Number of units, A is having 40,000, B is having 40,000. In one run, how many units of A they are manufacturing? 2,000. B, it is 5,000. This will give us number of setups. Number of setups. Actually, after each production run, you have to bear the setup cost. After each production run, you have to bear the setup cost. So 20 and 8. So the total is 28. Now, very easily we can calculate overhead absorption rate per setup. Number of setups we have calculated 28 and total setup cost is 84,000. So I would say exactly the same question with a little change in the data. We're getting answer 3,000 per setup. So $3,000 per setup. Now, unit cost of setup product B. So how much setup cost per unit product B will have to bear? So it's very simple. Per setup cost is 3,000. How many setups do we need to manufacture 40,000 units of product B? 8. And total number of units, obviously, there 40,000. So simply 3,000 multiplied by 8, I'm getting 24 divided by 40,000. It is $0.60. Do write this $0.60 because after decimal, they're saying 2 places. So let's go for 60. So that examiner should not mind 2 decimal. So it is $0.60. Next question. Okay. Using a traditional method of overhead absorption based on labor hours. Okay, we know that under absorption costing, it is number one volume based, and normally they have budgeted activity level, either labor hours or machine hours. That is why we say that under absorption costing, overheads allocation is unfair. And we have developed ABC, which claims that we will give you the fair allocation of overheads. Using a traditional method of overhead absorption based on labor hours, what is the overhead cost per unit for each unit of product alpha? What is the overhead cost per unit of each unit of alpha? So simply, student, first we need to calculate fixed overhead rate per labor hour in, I would say, what is the name of a company? ABC company. Then it will become easy to calculate the result. Question 36. We have to first calculate FOH rate. So basically, budgeted fixed overhead divided by total labor hours. This will give us whatever result comes, it will be per labor hour. You will get the rate per labor hour. Okay. Then what should be done? Then obviously for product A, labor hours required per unit. Required per unit. FOH rate per labor hour. Per labor hour. So simply whatever, we'll multiply both of the values and you will get FOH rate per unit of product A. FOH per unit of product A. You will get FOH per unit of product A. So let's first the main thing is first we have to calculate FOH rate per labor hour. Fixed overhead total is 4,20,000. So here it comes. They have given us 4,20,000. Now we need total labor hours. Direct labor hour per unit. Alpha needs 5 hours, beta needs 5 hours, annual activity. So 1,200 into 5 will give us total labor hours for alpha. 12,000 multiplied by 5 will give us total labor hours for beta. Let me use the calculator. 1,200 multiplied by 5 plus 12,000 multiplied by 5. I'm getting 66,000 hours. So the total direct labor hours, we have 66,000. So 4,20,000 divided by 66. 4,20,000 divided by 66 6,000, I'm getting 6.363636, and it just goes on. So $6.36 per labor hour. Now, very easily we can calculate FOH rate per unit. How many labor hours do we need for A? We need 5. 1 unit of product A needs 5 hours. FOH rate per hour is 6.36. So just multiply both of them will give you per unit FOH rate, which is 31.8. So I'm getting 31.8. Let's see. In fact, this is the answer. So I'm getting 31.8. Okay, they're saying to go for 2 decimal places. So let's go for 2 decimal places. So 5 multiplied by 3.63. Okay, we can do one more thing to get the result in 2 decimal places. Just a minute. So that examiner should not get angry. Now it will definitely give us the result to 2 decimal places. So 5 multiplied by 6.3636. Now, student, I'm getting 31.8182. 81. So with a little bit change, 31.82. Just because examiner was asking us to go for 2 decimal places. So 31.82. Now, using traditional method of overhead absorption based on labor hours, what is the overhead cost per unit for each product? Now this time beta. Obviously, how do we calculate? Labor hours required per unit multiplied by FOH rate per labor hour. Actually, product B also needs 5 hours into 6.3636. So definitely the result will be same, 31.82. How do we calculate FOH rate per unit? Basically, labor hours required per unit for product B also needs same labor hours per unit. FOH rate per labor hour is obviously same. So the result of both the question is same. That's great. Now let's go ahead. Now what they are saying. Using activity-based costing as method of overhead absorption. What is the overhead cost per unit for each unit of product alpha? Now what they are asking, using ABC costing as method of overhead. Question is same, everything is same, but now we need to solve the same question by using A, B, C. Now we have to solve the same question by using ABC to 2 decimal places. So using activity-based costing as method of overhead absorption, what is the overhead cost per unit for each unit of product alpha? Let's see. The ABC company manufactures 2 products, alpha and beta. Both are produced in a very labor-intensive environment. Use similar process, alpha and beta differ by volume. Beta is a high volume product while alpha is a low volume product. Details of product inputs, output, and cost activity are as follows. Per unit direct labor hours 5. Number of units, number of purchase orders 160. Number of setups 100. Great. And total labor hours we have already calculated, if I'm not wrong. How many labor hours? There were total labor hours we have calculated 66,000. Simply 5 multiplied by 1200, 5 multiplied by 12,000. Total labor hours are 66,000. Fine. Total overhead is 4,20,000. Now they are giving us the breakup of that 420. Volume related overhead is 1 lakh. When it says volume related, so obviously we will use labor hours to calculate overhead absorption rate. Repeat, volume related. So when it says volume related, so you will be using the same basis for calculating FH, absorption rate, which we use in absorption costing. Okay. Purchasing related, 1,45,000 divided by 160 will give us per purchase order cost. Will give us per purchase order cost. 1,75,000 is setup. Divided by 100 will give us per setup cost. So let's calculate at least per labor hour cost, per purchase order cost, per setup cost. So now we'll be calculating 3 overhead absorption rates. The question number we are discussing, it is 38. The question number 38 we are discussing. Okay. Volume related. Volume related overhead absorption rate is equal to 100,000. Labor hours we have already calculated 66,000. I'm getting $1.5151 per labor hour. Per labor hour. Now, per purchase order, overhead absorption rate per purchase order. Purchasing related is overhead is 1,45,000. So purchasing relating to the purchases, it is 1,45,000. How many purchase orders are there? 160. So that gives me per purchase order, 1,45,000 divided by 160. I'm getting per purchase order $906.25 per purchase order, per purchase order. And the last one was setup. So overhead absorption rate per setup. Examiner has already given us the total number of setups, and they are 100. And setup cost is 1,75,000. So 1,75,000 divided by 100. Per setup cost is $1,750 per setup. Fine. Now actually under ABC, we have to allocate that how much overheads they belong to alpha, and obviously we can also calculate how much they belong to beta, even though we need to just focus on alpha. So let's try alpha. Let's work on beta as well. Obviously, if you have, we know the total. If you have calculated how much overheads belongs to alpha, then obviously calculating beta will become very easy. Now look at this. 1.515 per labor hour. How many labor hours do we need to produce 1,200 units of alpha? So simply 5 multiplied by 1,200, that is 6,000. And this is 60,000. Total is 66. So come here. So volume related overheads, if we allocate 1.515 multiplied by 6,000 hours, I'm getting 9090.91. Beta I can easily calculate. How? Because the total is 1 lakh. Simply from 100,000, simply minus 9090.91 will give you 9090.09, which belongs to beta. That is volume related. Purchase related. Per purchase order, this is the cost. I just need to know how many purchase orders, total how many purchase orders they belong to alpha. That is 75. So 75 multiplied by per purchase order cost will give me the total purchasing cost, total purchasing order cost, which relates to alpha. So simply 75 multiply by 906.25 per purchase order. 906.25 per purchase order. So 75 into 906.25. Students, I'm getting 67,968.75. We know the total cost is 145. From 145, if you just deduct from 1,45,000, if I deduct 67,968.75, so I'll get how much purchase order overhead belongs to beta. That is 77,031.25. Now, setup cost belongs to alpha. Per setup, it is 1750. I just need to know how many setups are in product A. 1750 into number of setups of A. Number of setups of A, they are 40. So simply 1750 multiplied by 40, I'm getting 70,000. And total overhead cost, which belongs to setup, that is 1,75,000. From 175, if you deduct 70,000, you will get 105. Here comes the total overhead, which belongs to alpha and beta. So 9090.91 plus 67,968.75 plus 70,000. So I'm getting 1,47,059.66. Beta also, even though not required in this question right now, which we are solving, but maybe needed after that. 9090.09 plus 77,031.25 plus 1,05,000. So let's say I'm getting this one. 2,72,940.34. If you add 2,72,940.34 plus 147,059.66, so definitely we are getting 4,20,000. And I've already discussed total overheads will not change. Either we are following absorption costing or marginal, but definitely per unit overhead will definitely change. Now we just need to calculate overhead cost per unit of alpha. Overhead per unit of alpha. So very simple. Divide this with 12,000. If examiner is, let's say if examiner is also asking to calculate overhead cost per unit of beta, then obviously total overheads which belongs to beta divided by 12,000. But right now they're not asking this. So let's see. 1,47,059.66 divided by 1,200. Divided by 12, I'm getting students 122.549. So make it 55. So 122.55. Let's see. Do we have any choices? Yes, this is the one. They have not asked for the beta, but still, if you want for your understanding, just divide this with 12,000. It will give you the answer. How much belongs, what is the overhead cost under ABC, which belongs to beta? 2,72,940.34 divided by 12,000. So I'm getting 22.745. Again, 2,72,940.34 divided by 12,000. Yes, 22.745, even though they have not asked, but this is how we calculate for beta. Okay, now, next question. Using activity-based costing, what is the total fixed overhead amount to be absorbed into the each unit of product B to the nearest whole number? Okay. Using activity-based costing, what is the total fixed overhead amount to be absorbed? So basically, you just need to calculate fixed overhead per unit for product B by using A, B, C. Repeat, you just need to calculate fixed overhead per unit for product B by using ABC. Let's try. A company makes two products using the same type of materials, skilled workers. The following information is available. Budgeted volume 1,000, 2,000. Material per unit, and it is in dollars. Material per unit $10. Material per unit $20. Labor hours per unit dollars. Per unit labor cost per unit is $5 and $20. Fixed cost relating to material handling amount $100,000. Fixed cost relating to material handling. The cost driver for these costs is volume of material purchase. Repeat, examiner has given us. So simply material handling divided by total purchase cost will give you overhead absorption rate. Material handling. Question number 39. I just want to explain one point. Overhead absorption rate relating to material handling. Material handling is 1 lakh. But this time, this $100,000 will be divided by total purchases of material. This is written if you can read it again. Okay. Fixed cost relating to material handling is $100,000. The cost driver for these costs is the volume of material purchase. General fixed costs absorbed on the basis of labor hours amounted to 1,80,000. So the fixed overhead absorbed on the basis of labor hours. So 1,80,000. Now this 1,80,000. This 1,80,000 will be divided by, because examiner has not given us labor hours per unit. Examiner has given us labor cost per unit. Now, how will you calculate FOH rate? Very simple. Now, 180 will be divided by total direct labor cost. 180 will be divided by total labor cost. Examiner has not given us how many hours do we need in 1 unit of A and 1 unit of B. Instead of that, examiner has given us labor per unit labor cost per unit of product A is $5, per unit of product B is $20. So now there's only one way to calculate overhead absorption rate, 1,80,000 divided by total labor cost. Okay. Now let's try. First, obviously, we'll be calculating overhead absorption rate, and after that, you will automatically get the final result. $100,000 divided by total purchases of material. So 1,000 units of product A multiplied by $10. It means $10,000 of material purchase according to the budget. 20,000 into 20. So 20 is 2,000. 2,000 into 20, 40,000. So it means the total purchases is 40 plus 10, 50. Total purchases is actually 50. So basically we can say that overhead absorption rate relating to material handling is $2. And this is $2 per dollar purchase of material. $2 per dollar purchase of material. Very simple. If logically, if you're purchasing material of $1, you will have to bear $2 material handling cost. What is the interpretation? On each $1 purchase of material, you have to bear $2 material handling cost. Okay. Now let's calculate overhead absorption rate on the basis of labor cost. The total they have given us 1,80,000. Now 1,000 multiplied by 5 and 2,000 multiplied by 20. So this is obviously 5,000 and this is 40. So the total is 45. Let me use the calculator. 1,80,000 divided by 45,000. I'm getting $4. 1,80,000 divided by 45,000. It means, what is the interpretation? That is $4 per dollar cost of labor, per dollar cost of labor. It means if you have to bear $1 cost, so you have to bear $4 over general overheads, which relates to the labor cost. Okay. Now, very easily we can calculate the final answer. What they're asking, using ABC, what is the total fixed overhead amount to be absorbed into the each unit of product B? Fine. When we say product B, material per unit is 20. Material per unit is 20 and material handling cost per unit of material handling cost per dollar of purchase material is $2. So it means that material handling cost product B. Material handling cost product B is $2 per $1 purchase of material. So in order to manufacture 1 unit of product B, we have to have the purchases of material $20. So it means on handling cost, you have to bear $40. Now, the second is journal fixed overhead absorbed on the basis of labor hours. Journal fixed overhead relating to product B. Journal fixed overhead is $4 per $1 of labor cost. Journal fixed overhead you have to bear for product B is $4 per $1 of labor cost. In 1 unit of product B, the labor cost is $20. So into 20, I'm getting 80. So it means the total fixed cost per unit of product B is 120. Total fixed cost per unit of product B is 120. Okay, now let's see how many questions are left. There's one question, that is question 40 and question 41. I think just we are left with 2 questions. Okay, now students, just 2 questions. Question 40 and 41. You can take it as an assignment, as an homework, but I want every one of you to please do attempt question 40 and 41. In case of any confusion, you can always ask in your relevant WhatsApp groups. You can always ask. Plus, what is the agenda for the coming class? Student, in the coming class, we will be discussing, we'll be doing practice question for section B. And we know that in section B, what happens? You will be getting a small case study. On that small case study, examiner is going to set 5 questions. Each question will have 2 marks. So in the next class, see, in a very first class, we did discuss a long question on ABC. Now we did, in a very first class, we did the entire theoretical area of ABC, then the long question, now section A, and then obviously I'll go for section B. I have just given you 2 questions. So please, I request every one of you do attempt these questions. If someone is, let's say, watching this lecture on our YouTube channel, do try to attempt and do write the answer on our YouTube channel. And in the next class, we'll be discussing ABC questions, or what type of question they appear in section B. So thank you very much. Stay in touch. Have a nice day.